as you just heard, Max, players making it clear, NBA players, regardless if they win the chip or not, they have no intention of going to the White House. Do you think the NBA should come to the aid of the NFL in terms of how to deal with these social issues?
Nope. No, I don't. Because this is the NFL's mess. You know, this is easy to talk about our country right now along racial lines because there's a huge overlap among, you know, support for the president and race, obviously. His support comes almost exclusively from white people, many of them male, many of them older, usually lower educated. I'm just talking about the demographics. That is a huge amount of his support. And that is reflected in the management in the NFL, ownership in the NFL, players in the NFL. I mean, there are many who don't feel that way, but more certainly all of these things than in the NBA. And fans of the NFL, let's be honest. There's more support there than there is in the NBA. So if I'm calling that basically white, then am I calling the NBA black? No. I would say that right now we're talking about a multiracial coalition. Supporters, it's basically as a monolith. White people voted many as a monolith for Trump, and many continue to support him. And a multiracial coalition is against him and is for was for his opponent in the last election and remains opposed to many of his policies and his personality, obviously, and many of his outrageous public statements. That is reflected in the NBA. And the NBA right now doesn't have a Trump problem, do they? But the NFL does. And it's something intrinsic about the NFL as it's currently, constituted, ownership level, management level, player level, fan level. That's where Trump has support. Therefore, the NFL has a problem because no matter what they do, he can always use the NFL as a political football, so to speak, as a distraction. Can't do that with the NBA so easily because the NBA, even at the ownership level, certainly at the management level, obviously at the player level, and a much bigger percentage of the fans don't feel the same way the NFL does. So the NBA doesn't have that problem and the NBA is doing just fine. It's the fastest growing global team sport. It does not face the same problems the NFL does and should stay out of the NFL's business. Let them clean up their own mess, which may require, Stephen A. In fact, I think it does require the NFL changing its attitude, developing its own moral compass, and doing the right thing.
Y'all finish? I respectfully yet emphatically disagree with what you just said. Allow me to go where I'm going to go. You know, when former President Barack Obama, before he became president, gave his speech at the Democratic National Convention in 2004, he talked about it not being a blue state or a red state, but this is the United States of America. We appreciate that. That's what this country is supposed to be about. And I think about that along the lines of so many times, on so many occasions, people look at the Jewish community and say what you want to say, but they come together and they stand up for one another.
I disagree with that, Stephen A.
Okay, well, you know what?
And I'm Jewish, and I disagree with that.
Let me stop that. You can disagree with that. I respect that because you would know that better than me. I'm just telling you about the impression that I get from the outside looking in. I certainly wouldn't challenge you on that. We have a situation where you look at the NFL community. It's not about the NFL. It's about a vast majority of young black men who are professional athletes in the National Football League. They are in a league that has a hard salary cap. They are in a league that has a level of institutional control, the likes of which we see nowhere else in professional sports. The hard salary caps, the ability to cut salaries, to modify salaries, to completely waive and cut and eradicate salaries at a whim. The kind of dominion, the level of dominion that they have over these professional athletes. Now juxtapose that to the National Basketball Association. We're talking about cats. We're talking about some are scrubs that have guaranteed contracts. They don't have to worry a damn thing about their dollars being cut. They don't have to worry about, contracts being altered and what have you. The level of cachet that the NBA players have is so profound, so significant, that they have an opportunity to literally intervene and come to the aid of those professional football players, because they have the ability to say, wait a minute, we're not going to let you denounce and demonize and excoriate and minimize these brothers. We're not having it, not just because they're the NBA brand, but they're a globalized brand. And when you see a LeBron James speak out, and when you see a Steph Curry speak out, you don't just look at them as NBA players. You look at them as young black men who are incredibly successful, who are incredibly powerful and influential, who stand up and speak on behalf of so many of us. Well, if they have the ability and the power to speak to Joe Blow out there, how come they don't have the power to speak on behalf of NFL players who can't speak for themselves? We might be voiceless to some degree. Well, imagine how those NFL players are. So if you have the ability to have such an impact in such a manner that it will reverberate not just nationally, but worldwide, and you bring the attention of the world upon this particular issue and how a particular individual is willing to exercise his cachet just out of vengeance towards NFL owners, but it's at the expense of the rights of players in this country. And you have guys with that cachet that are willing to speak up for over 1,600 players, a vast majority of them who happen to be black. I say to you, Max Kellerman, you don't just look at them as NFL players. You look at them as your fellow brothers, black men who are being stymied and are being limited to such a degree. And you say, no, we're not having that because our country is supposed to be better than that. I have no problem with that.